That's one reason that I'm proud of the visitor center, because I worked to restore that building. That building was
Yes.
falling down.
Mm-hmm.
And we managed to, with a couple of grants we have, we managed to restore that building, and it's now an office building as well as a visitor center.
Yes.
But the first time I walked in that building, before we started working on it, I honestly had to kick the dead pigeons out of the way. And
I imagine, sure.
it was open to the sky, and so there was quite a bit of work done on that building to restore that and keep it as a part of Seymour's history, because the railroads were a big part of Seymour's history.
Well, the railroads were what built Seymour.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been here in the way it was without the railroads.
You mentioned the 20s and bootlegging. I'm sure it was headed to Chicago. I know a lot of Louisville stuff, bootleggers came up obviously through here. Was that the local trade just passing the whiskey along, or was there local farmers making extra money?
Oh, I think there was quite definitely local people out in, I don't know if you've traveled over Jackson County very much. Jackson County is a pretty big county. We're, I think, 92 square miles. I mean, there's just an awful lot of hills and hollers down through there. There's a lot of areas that are really far away.
So your opinion is they were on the trail, they were on the bootlegging trail, probably taking their stuff
I
up
think
to
they
Chicago.
were from going from Louisville to Chicago. I don't think it had anything to do. I think the local people sold to local people.
Oh, okay.
And of course, Prohibition was a failure from beginning to end. It was passed in 1919. It said absolutely no sale or use of any kind of intoxicating beverage. Well, for one thing, they put the wine growers in California out of business. There were many, many farmers that had come over from Italy, had established fine, wonderful wineries, and they went out of business when Prohibition came, because they were only allowed to make enough, perhaps for a church, to serve wine for their communion, but they couldn't make a living like that. And many of those people went out of business, and they were perfectly legitimate businesses, and they just went down the tubes. So Prohibition also hurt some people, but it was like immediately they began the bootlegging and the moonshining. And of course, that's during the period of time, you remember the Valentine Days massacre, where Al Capone's gang went in and shot 7 of a rival gang members, and they, it was a really big operation. These gangsters had really big operations going on during that period of time, and most people just ignored the fact that it was Prohibition and went ahead and did their own thing. And I think it was to such an extent that there was no way that the law officials could have kept up with it. It just wasn't possible. I know there was a mass, and part of the reason for Prohibition was a lot of foreigners were coming into the United States during that period of time. A lot of people were coming over from Europe and different areas because they were looking for refuge in the United States. And so I think some people thought for some reason that they could keep these people under control if they wouldn't let them drink. And I think that was a part of it. But, and it was an area of time right then where people were opposed to the fact that we should not let all these immigrants in. It was similar to what we're going through now with the Hispanic population. There are many people that feel like we should not let them into the United States. At that time, they did not feel like all these foreigners should be let in. And there were a lot of people from Ireland, from different parts of Europe that fled to the United States. Albert Einstein for that matter, Albert Einstein fled to the United States from Germany. He was a Jew and he lived in Germany. And he knew before the war even came to the United States, he knew that he would not be allowed to do any of his inventing or anything he planned to do in Germany, and he fled to the United States. He was an immigrant. And so, you know, it affected a lot of people in Europe and in those areas, and they wanted to come here for safety. And many of them did. And now they've just been assimilated into our culture, and we don't think a thing about it. If somebody's Irish or whatever they are, we don't think anything about it. We just accept it as a fact that they're one of us, but we're very hostile perhaps to other nationalities. And there was a great feeling of unrest against the Negro people. The people in the South were, for one thing, they were ravaged by war. Many of their plantations, many of their areas had been torn up and destroyed, their homes had been destroyed, and the Negro people were turned loose on their own. Many of them didn't know what to do or how to take care of themselves because they'd been taken care of all their lives. And so in the 20s, there started to be more of a movement to the north because they knew they could get jobs there. They could find some work. They could find some place to live. And so during that period of time, we started acquiring a lot more African Americans in our area. And they were simply looking for work and a way to support their families, trying to get away from the South. And so there was still a great deal of racial prejudice everywhere. You know, it was very difficult for the Southerners to accept them, and it was very difficult for the Negro people to make a living. And so that changed everything in the area too. So we've all been affected by what happened before.
Yeah. And we will be affected by what is happening now.
Yes, we will.
That's.
But, you know, I still feel like, and I'm sure you do too, the United States is the best place to live in the world. And yes, we have our problems, and yes, we have problems with our government, but I still feel like it's the best place to be. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I think the people of this area have worked hard to try to make this area a good place to live, and I think they continue to do that. And I'm happy about that. That is all I have.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you very much.
Did you ever know anything about Snyder's Dairy?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
my folks, or that's my grandparents actually. My mother's Beulah Snyder, Beulah Clark.
Yeah, and Alf would be your great-grandfather?
Probably.
Okay.
They lived on South Walnut Street.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
show horses.
And had show horses because he was out of
Did
my
you know
barn a
this?
lot and we were down at his barn and we showed together.
Did you know anything about it?
I knew Alf Snyder a little. Of course, I was younger. And, you know, Snyder's Dairy and Thompson's Dairy were the two, you know, the two dairies in this area. And everybody bought milk from both of them.
Yeah, well, Newby's Dairy was here too at the same
Yes,
time.
Newby's was one. So there were three prominent dairies at that
Yeah.
time. And now,
Was Snyder's actually in town or out of Snyder?
It was in town.
no,
It was,
yeah, he lived on Walnut Street.
yeah, but it was, oh,
My mom
I
talks
could
about
probably take you to where it used to be, but I mean, I
it.
can't.
Didn't there become like a laundromat there or something?
Close to where the Lutheran Church is,
So
yeah.
that's what she was saying. So that's actually where they had their dairy. And I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
But they were a very prominent part of,
Jackson
you
County,
know,
yeah.
society in that area.